Welcome. My name is DJ Eidson, COO and co-founder of Limitless Minds, and we're excited to have you on the webinar today. We're doing something different, and something a little bit different from the norm. We're actually live today. We're going to take some questions. We had a lot of questions come up over the last 10 or 12 weeks here. This is our 10th webinar, so we're going to answer some of the questions that you guys have already sent, but we're also going to answer some of the questions that come up in the chat room. I've already seen some folks, shout out to Danny and Jeremy. I think John said something about protein shakes. We can talk about that later on. But yeah, we're excited to have you guys here in the chat room. So with that, I want to introduce two special guests. We have the president and also co-founder of Limitless Minds, Harry Wilson. Harry Wilson has spent a large amount of time in business and also pharmaceutical industry, leading and mentoring and getting great results in business. And now he's the president of Limitless Minds, and also co-founder and CEO Trevor Moawad, who you've seen on numerous occasions over the course of the webinars. And we're excited to have him on the webinar today too as well. So with that, let's get started. Let's first do an audio check. All right, Trev, you there? You good?
I'm here, DJ. How you doing out there in beautiful Cleveland?
It's good, man. We had the sun shining earlier. We got a little bit of rain, overcast, but all good. We're gonna have a nice weekend. And Harry Wilson, let's get your audio.
Mic check. You hear me? Okay. Am I here?
All right.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
We hear you.
I'm excited to be on, and like you said, DJ, got some good. Get some regulars on. I feel like we're a radio show. We got the regulars, long-time listener folks.
That's right.
Bruce, I saw Bruce from Atlanta, and you said Danny, and got Todd from Seattle. I see Wolfgang's on. I've seen him on a lot of these. Yeah. So we got some peeps. So thanks for joining, guys. It's been a fun 9 episodes up to this point, and so I'm excited about this last one, just to kind of keep it live and keep it real and get some questions answered and have some fun.
No, it's good. And so we're going to go right into the questions. Again, we have some questions that were pre-sent, but we also have some questions that are going to be in the chat room. So we'll go back and forth. First question is to you, Trevor. Do you have any suggestions? This comes from Bo. Do you have any suggestions on how to teach neutral thinking in an adult classroom type setting? Any suggestions there?
I think you have to, first of all, I would get the book, because I think the book does a really good job. One of the things that HarperCollins wanted to make sure we did was really go through science, the origins, how it connects to bias, how it connects to all the different elements. I think the process first is, like, the whole goal of the book was not to teach neutral thinking, it was to teach the validity of how negative thinking worked negatively. And the externalization of it, A, being most powerful, the consumption of it, B, being secondly. So you really can't start out by teaching neutral thinking. You have to establish how negative thinking, you've got to get the people in that classroom to understand and acknowledge and be open, which they will be, that negative thinking doesn't help. And I think the more you could do research on that, you could utilize the book, you establish that, then I think you have to kind of go through some of the origins and the challenges of positive thinking, and then ultimately neutral thinking becomes the only sort of best case landing space. It was never set to be perfect, but I don't think you can start out by teaching neutral. The minimization of negative, some of the challenges with positive, the science around that, and then I think you gradually transition to the middle ground, which is neutral.
Awesome. Good.
So it seems
Harry,
so it seems like, the opportunity is in, really letting people kind of understand the why behind, why neutral is kind of the a smart choice, right? And kind of giving some of the history and the background around positive and negative, and where there's data, great, where there's not. It's important to know, right? So that way people can. So I think the cool thing about neutral is it feels like it takes the pressure off of an individual or a team or an organization. The pressure to be positive when shit's real, when it's really tough, right? How do you just stay positive, right? Of course, as we talked about, And then also it gives you kind of a landing spot, that's a better alternative than negative, obviously, right? We know that negative works, but the problem is it works negatively 100% of the time. So it gives you a nice landing spot that's an alternative to positivity, that takes the pressure off.
Well, it all depends. I mean, Harry, I think that's completely right. But it's not perfect. I never set out to invent something. It was more practical. And you got to remember, 18 years in sports, you understand how skeptical that population is. Coaches, number one, and then the players, military, same way. So to me, I just think it was really looking at the what makes the most sense, what's the data telling us, what's practical, just people's only alternative for years was I've got to be positive, and they would give up on it and just go back to negative, and that's just not acceptable. So neutral is a middle ground that makes more sense, but people have to study it. They've got to read more. People, and it works for us, and I think it makes sense. But a lot of people are still going to be more comfortable going back to negative because that's where they've been. But it's gonna have consequences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another question we got. This one's from Brian. This is because we talk about neutral being a lot about behaviors, right, or the habits that you create for yourself, and so this question says, can you all discuss some best practices for managing good habits or behaviors in our constantly changing environment? How do we maintain and manage those good habits? Because it's a marathon, right? So how do we keep those going, turn behaviors into habits?
DJ.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this is the best opportunity to start to create habits, because if you think about your career, or has there been a time in history where you've had this consistent of a schedule? And so I think that some of the best practices around habits. I've read a lot of books about habits and being consistent. And a lot of times it was hard to plug that in when you're on a plane, on a Monday morning. So how do you get up and read when you got to get on the plane at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m., whatever it is. And so now it's just about being consistent. What's your routine in the morning? What time are you getting up? What are you intaking first? We talk a lot about garbage in, garbage out. So is the first thing that you do is scroll on your phone and check the news? That's going to make you feel a certain way about yourself. Trevor shares a lot of stats about the news and how that makes you feel when you introduce that to yourself, first thing or at any point in the day. And so, so what are you consuming? What are you not consuming? And what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And it goes throughout the day. You're going to have Zoom calls for a lot of you. There's going to be certain consistencies throughout your normal day. How do you end your day? How do you turn things off? Where do you place your phone at the end of the day to make sure that you can actually shut down and enter the next part of your life or your routine, and that's your family. So how do you unplug? And so these are some of the things. One of the things I'll give you specific that I do when I find that my life is kind of falling out of balance in terms of, and I'm introducing and getting on social media, maybe first thing or whatever. I like to start the day out with gratitude. And so what I'll do is I will actually place my phone underneath my bed, which will allow me to start out on my knees. And focus on being thankful, saying 2 or 3 things that I'm thankful for before I even go and grab my phone. And so that's one best practice that I've done and incorporated when life starts going fast and I'm worried too much about all the stuff that's going on, and I need to slow down so that I can ultimately speed up. Trevor, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I mean, my dad used to always say success is a stairway, not a doorway. And so, the habits are just ultimately things that you're going to do. Like first you form a habit, then that habit forms you. You can form a good habit, such as a little thing like keeping your phone under your bed so you automatically go down, in a kneeling position to give thanks, obviously spiritually. And so I just think the more we can stack good habits, but the great thing about it is literally and Joe Dispenza talks about this, I think, in a really good way, complicated way, but a good way. When you do things a certain way, your neurons essentially fire and wire, and they eventually become like fused together. And think about it this way, like your drive home from work. You do it so often that basically, in your mind, the muscle memory, this is my drive home from work, and it creates this identity. I'm going to go here, 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 here. I don't even think about it. Sometimes we get home and we don't even remember driving, and then now all of a sudden, let's say there's 4 detour signs. So now all of a sudden we kind of step back and we have to be a lot more conscious of the process. But as all of a sudden we go down this road and this road and this road over a period of time, we move away, we break away from the old drive, and we reform a new drive, and that becomes, our identity as well. So all a habit is when you start doing something a certain way, and eventually becomes the way you do it. That's why we focus so much on behavior. If I can just do the right thing first, the understanding may come second, and then the feeling good about it comes second, as opposed to waiting to feel a certain way. Like, I don't know that I want to stop watching TV or stop watching CNN. Captain Shaby, our good friend from SEAL Team 5, his wife literally said, "We're done. Like, we're not watching 9 hours of news anymore," because they were all together, obviously, with all this stuff going on. And so he said it was kind of funny. They agreed that he could watch a program and a half. So like one of his shows and a half of another show, because in the military community, a lot of them are used to consuming a lot of that and had strong opinions, and so I think it's just a matter of new behavior over a period of time creates a new identity.
Mm-hmm.
Old behavior, when no longer done, or you go back to it. It's just a matter of limits.
Yep. No, that's good stuff.
Harry, I think that's a great question.
So no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Harry.
Well, I had another question that I wanted to ask, if that's okay, DJ. That's kind of related to it, and I'm noticing in the chat room, because behaviors, it's like you talk about secondhand smoke, right, or secondhand negativity, right? We talked about that a little bit on some of these webinars. Sometimes our behaviors are influenced by our environment, those around us, our family, our peers at work, or our leaders at work. How do you? There was a question from Tim, and then another one from Jeremy. There were different questions, but they align with each other. Just really about how do you build accountability for the people around you, right? And or how do you manage an environment where the negativity is so strong around you, right, that is bringing you down, right? So like, how do you hold people accountable, and also like how do you kind of manage that ecosystem around you where you're doing the best you can. You're understanding, how the power of negativity, but the others around you, it's so overwhelming. And Trevor, that's for you.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. The idea that you're at home and you have a sibling, a significant other, a parent, someone in town that when they're home for a long period of time over the weekend, all they do is watch the news. Which happens often, right? And I think it creates secondhand smoke, particularly when it is so insane, like it's been the last 4 months. Obviously with everything going on the last few days, it's hard not to just want to sit and stare for 4 hours. And you have to make a choice. Some people can consume it like entertainment. I watch it for an hour, I watch a scary movie, and then you do that, and just like a scary movie can give you nightmares. But the difference, I think, a lot of times between a scary movie is, it's not true. But I think what you do is you try to create a boundary for yourself. You respect, hey, they're going to watch that. I'm going to go to another room and I'm going to watch something different. I'm going to go to another place. And unless I can get them to change it, just say, hey, yeah, you know what? I know you like watching it. I don't want to change it for you, but that takes me to the wrong space. I go into another room and maybe your kids come with you and you watch something different, but I think the thing that I always focus on is controllable negativity. So if you're in a work environment, like I told the story when I was a school teacher, there was a table that, 12 to 14 teachers would sit at that didn't like Los Angeles Unified School District. I taught for 2 years there. I said, I'm never going to sit there. And I intentionally didn't, but a year and a half into my teaching career there, I found myself sitting at that table. And then I said, you know what, I'm in a place where I agree with them. I've got to go. And ultimately I went to another school in Florida to teach for 2 years. So I just think when the best thing you can do, Harry, is what I watch, what I say, who I hang out with, control that. In the 7, 8, 10, 12 hours, you might be stuck in an environment you have limited control where you sit, control where you get around, control your social media. But other than that, you accept that that's part of your current reality right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. Hey, Harry, in the chat room too. I don't know if you saw. This is going back to some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier. Somebody said, I think it was Peter, me-mail before email. So that's So I thought that was pretty clever. So thanks, Peter, for sharing that. Dave had a question come up in the chat room, and I think this is timely. Harry, I think you do a really nice job of balancing work and life. Harry has 3 daughters at home, a wife that works. So he's been knee deep in trying to figure out what that correct balance looks like. We had a question come from Dave that said, there's a lot of negativity at work, and oftentimes that can spill over into his home life. What are some things and suggestions you give him on managing that?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it earlier because I'd written a note down about that. Gratitude I think is critical, such a powerful tool, right? And I think that gratitude is just a great roadmap for, handling kind of, that environment, right? I mean, and that's what we do as a team. And we might have shared this on this webinar before and some of the Q&A, but as a team, Limitless Minds team, on every call, which we have daily, you're required to say what you're grateful for, right? Where you're holding gratitude, and it does a lot for us as individuals and also as a team, I think. And so I think that that's really critical relative to, carrying that work-life balance. And because a lot of what we're all thankful for that are on this call, there's hundreds of people on this webinar right now, is family stuff, right? Health. Hopefully, all the things, and a lot of it's mine. Some of it might be a great job or a great career, but a lot of times for most of us, that kind of is like the second or third, fourth thing. There's all these other things in our life that are really grateful for. So I mean, I think that the gratitude is so critical to that. And then sharing that gratitude with your peers at work, with your kids, your spouse. What are you grateful for on a constant basis? I think that's critical.
Good, awesome. All right, so we have a question from John here. Trevor, you've worked with a lot of teams, and so you've seen a lot of different management and leadership styles. How do you survive micromanagement while working from home? What does that look like in the concepts that you teach, and what advice would you give there?
So you work for somebody that's trying to micromanage you, probably by text message, email, Zoom meeting. Right now, I would assume that that's what they mean. DJ, what do you think in terms of? Well, I've always believed one of the most powerful things is acceptance. Sometimes when you accept a certain person is the way they are, and you remove the judgment out, you sort of say, okay, they're going to, because you really only have 2 options. Hey, do you have setting up a time to talk and just say, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with all of the requirements that you're putting on me. If you're in the coaching world, you're not having that conversation, because that conversation, you just wouldn't have it. So if you're being micromanaged, you're getting text messaged all the time. I know in professional and college football, that head coach has so many things on his or her mind, whether it's Kirby Smart or Corey Close or Mel Tucker, Michigan State, who was on our show, and Corey Close from UCLA. They have so many things on their mind. All of a sudden, DJ, you come in my attention, and it's like, oh my God, did DJ make sure he followed up with this recruit? Brrr. Did DJ make sure that he checked in on those 4 players? Brrr. You know, and then they just go that way.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is all right, when I'm in his wake or her wake, this is how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I get it all the time. I'm relevant at certain times, and all of a sudden the head coach comes, boom, and then what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this? It's just a matter of kind of stepping back. All right, how do I help manage the situation? And I do my best at my pace to go one at a time and respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good.
That's really all you can do, because you're not going to change them. You have to develop a coping mechanism that makes you function.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you're talking about too is acceptance of, you know, and that's where neutral comes into play. And what Trevor's taught me around neutral in applying it to business is that you have to accept, and it's a fact, if the leader is a micromanager, right, then she or he, that is who they are. They're going to present themselves in a certain way. They're going to do certain things, and you have to accept that. But your behaviors, in order to get the results that you need to be successful in your role, those need to be successful behaviors, whether it's your sales rep and it's the amount of calls you're making, or the amount of lunch and learns that you're doing, or whether it's with your customer interactions. What are you doing to add value to your customer? What do those behaviors look like? You still have to do those things to get the result, regardless of who your leader is. And so a lot of times you can lead by example with somebody that micromanages. Because ultimately, if that person is not a good leader, it'll be exposed one way or the other. But as long as you're bringing value to your organization, to your team, you'll still be around. And so that's the advice.
And I think micromanaging is not necessarily a bad trait. I mean, a lot of people micromanage, and the reason they do it is they're either A, trying to still build confidence in the people around them, or B, it's a way that they feel more confident.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so that they feel more confident. All right, I know I told Harry 8 times, but now I feel better. And then Harry's got to deal with it. I mean, there's a lot of people that make it to the top as micromanagers. So you got to be careful when you judge that.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you move towards that which you talk about. So you become more like, so if I'm always complaining, this guy's a micromanager, this lady's a micromanager, you may just need to shut up and accept that. And then that's their style. And rather than using micromanage like a negative, you know, their mind is they're just making sure they're covering their bases,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and, you know, I've done a lot of that. You know, I had 80 people that worked for me in Bradenton, and, you know, I ultimately gave them a lot of flexibility to do what they needed to do, but I would overcheck on a lot of things, particularly when it came to the NFL draft, or hosting big NFL events, and people that did, you know, operations and coordinated schedules on the trams that drove around the campus. I was in their shit nonstop, and they did not like it, but I wanted it the way I wanted it. And a lot of times you just can't trust that it's good. People are, you know, it's not personal. It's more their issue than yours.
Yep. Good.
But the key words are the same, right? And there's one, for example, that just reminded me about this in the chat room from Alex, right? He asked, currently I'm seeing a lot of my guys struggling with routines, and they are dropping off the chart based on, quote, a lack of motivation. How would you tackle it? And so the question really is around motivation, right? Some of the questions that we get a lot, Trevor, is like, because we talk about motivating the motivated a lot, but a lot of us, especially as leaders, you know, we have a certain portion of our group that aren't as motivated as the rest of them, right? Is there even a way to tap into the motivated, or as an old friend of ours used to say, or does a leopard never change its spots, right? Can somebody that's unmotivated become motivated, right? And how do you get them there?
Well, again, motivation is really 2 subcomponents: motive and action, right? So you take the action when you have the motive. So, I mean, I had all those families for years at IMG Academy that, you know, all my son wants to do is play Call of Duty. He's not motivated. Well, I said, well, he is motivated. They said, really? Yeah, he's motivated. What makes you think that? I said, he's motivated to play Call of Duty. You know, I mean, so at the end of the day, goals come from, a lot of people set the goals too far out, but they come from some type of short-term, expectation. And one of the things we've been talking about in the NBA with some, the team I'm involved with, not like particularly in the first 3 months where we didn't have a date, like we can't try to motivate people without a date when they know they're coming back. So don't even bother. So let's do different things that let's provide education. Let's provide, an hour on day. We're gonna do this. Let's send educational videos. Let's send 7-minute videos profiling athletes. Let's just do different things to keep people engaged. But until there's a time that says we're coming back to practice July 1st in Disney World, then it's going to be harder for them to connect. So I think right now, give people a break. I saw some friends, social distance wise, a couple of days ago that have 4 kids and, they're 5th grader. They're just doing the best they can to, just to keep him, surviving between 8 and 2 p.m. They're trying to figure out, what am I going to do when school gets out right now? And there's no camps, and a lot of these different types of things. So I just think motivation, now that's obviously kids. I think in general, if people aren't motivated, to respect their right not to be motivated. If you're a leader, help them become aware of a motive. Like, what's the motive for doing anything or everything? And that leads to the action.
Love it. Awesome. All right. This one comes from Josh. This was one of the questions sent in earlier. What things do you do daily to lock in your mindset?
Harry?
Harry's on mute for some reason.
I have to write things down. If I'm really, when I'm really at my best, and it's not all the time, right? I'm not always at my best. When I'm really at my best, I have a plan kind of each day, certainly each week, certainly, consistently, often. And so, that's one thing I had written down for another question that kind of related, right? Is writing, talk about good habits, right? Is keeping this stuff written down, right? What's my daily action plan? What's my weekly action plan? Whatever it might be, whatever works for you. I think that action plan is critical because when you write it down daily, obviously we know that, it's easier to keep those things going, keep them in the front of your mind. But, for me, it just kind of lets me reset, because sometimes the daily plan, I need a plan B, right? You think all of us should have a plan B. And so part of that for me is writing that down. Okay, here's what am I planning on doing? Here's what I'm trying to set forth. If and when really something gets in the way of that, here's my plan B, right? And so having that plan B gives me a lot of confidence. It also helps me stay neutral because I'm preparing for the curveball. As a baseball player, right? You look for the fastball, you adjust curve. And that's what we're all kind of doing on a daily basis. Like we think we know what's coming. Inevitably we don't, and things have to shift, and that's on the daily, right? And so, this I thought this call was going to go this way. It went completely different, right? I thought this sales call was going to go this way. I used to be in pharmaceuticals, right? The doctor said something different than I thought he or she was going to say, whatever it might be. So for me, writing down the plan and then also providing myself some plan B options, so that way I'm prepared for that, and it comes second nature. What I do.
Yep.
DJ, I saw a question here from Michelle. Do you mind if I jump in and answer?
Absolutely.
Question is, what's the strategy for letting go of things in the past? I read It Takes What It Takes, and Trevor alluded to past relationships. Suggest revisiting those individual situations from the past, or focus on the present only. I think that's, I maintain a good relationship with my ex-wife. It took time. We never had a bad one, but we took stretches of time where we weren't engaged outside of the basic things that we needed to do. But now, for a variety of reasons, but for now, we talk probably 3 times a week, more about like this situation and hiking and where she's moving and selling her car and me keeping my car registered there and in Arizona or whatever. But so I don't think you have to completely disengage, but there's a long period of time where there are certain things that you do, like, I've seen statistics that if you go on somebody's social media, while you're trying to move past that, for 30 minutes, it takes an additional 2 weeks for you to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, going on Facebook pages, going on Instagram pages, trying to discover who they're with or what they're doing, that's not going to be productive for you to move forward and be successful in your life. But I think as you've been able to do that, then I think you can build a functional relationship, together. And my former significant other's in a relationship. She says, I don't ask a lot about it. I know it. She felt, comfortable sharing it with me. At one point, it was a 10-minute conversation. And we don't talk about that often. So I just think there are consequences for lingering. But at some point, you have to trust yourself over a period of time. You can't just only live forward because you have people that are part of your life. You have to navigate it, understanding the consequences.
Yep, it's great.
Great question.
This one came in from Jennifer, and I'll take a stab at it here. It says, propose one means of communication so that it's not coming from. It is not coming at you from multiple applications such as email or Zoom. That seems to be like the main forms of communication that people are communicating with right now. So what I would say is I think there's multiple ways. And one of the things we've incorporated, we will send either a note or flowers or gifts to people that we're trying to impact. We've done more of that. I think just picking up the phone and calling people is refreshing after they've been on Zoom calls all day. Handwritten notes go a long way. So sometimes it's mixing up the mediums because we are being inundated. I would say my emails have gone up 30 to 40% since the healthcare challenge here. And the Zoom calls have gone up, significantly. We're on Zoom calls. We talked about habits. My habits, I've had to get up earlier to do some of the things in my routine because I know starting at 9:00, the Zoom calls are back to back until 4:30. And so Harry and I, we talk first thing at 8:30, get our plan together. I do what I need to do before 8:30, and that helps get things set. But yeah, mix up the mediums because people are zoomed out right now.
But I also think DJ, Mel Tucker kind of gave a counter narrative to that, right? Now he's in a different role because you're in an operations and a sales role, and you're having a lot of conversations connected to that. But he also said he doesn't schedule meetings back to back, so he has the flexibility in his day now as a head coach, right? As a leader to navigate, the 50 players that are coming back on campus, all the different things that need to happen. So, I think it depends. If you cannot schedule yourself from 8:30 to 4:30 and you can build some time in, and you can control that, then do that. I think what we've found in sales is we have to increase our conversations and our frequency and all the people that are interested in us a lot higher now in order to get the same outcome that we might have got 4 or 5 months ago. And Harrison and DJ are as good I've never seen better sales performers believe in it, but they're just DNA and talent and their experience and been these two as good as I've ever seen. They're like Coach Saban recruiting. So they do such an incredible job of selling the value. So there's certain where that's good, but I think if you're in a leadership role and you're running a company right now, if you schedule from 8:30 to 4:30, like I was having an individual conversation with the CEO, and he was saying, I'm trying to change these things, but by the end of my 9th Zoom meeting, I just want everybody on my team to go play in traffic. And I said, well, then obviously you can't schedule 9 Zoom meetings.
That's right.
There are consequences to that. So maybe schedule, 8 to 9 and 11 to 12 and, 1 to 2 and maybe go 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and then, 4 to 4:30 and then you shut it down and do fitness with your daughter at 5.
That's right. Fitness at 5. That's good. Awesome. Harry, any other questions coming up here? I know we're running down probably about 5 more minutes here. So.
Peter says that, to create habits now, he he uses index cards that Trevor, that you mentioned earlier, right? That your dad taught him, right? And
Yeah.
and so they've been huge in helping keep his trajectory, and he reviews them 3 times daily to track performance. So I thought that's pretty cool. Your dad's still impacting folks in that way. It's really awesome. The other question that we got that we get a lot, kind of, along the way, right? We got it the other day, right? And that I might start answering, and then I'll let you guys plug in. But the one question is, Trevor, we know that you have made this huge impact in sports with, top performers and leaders in sports. How does it translate to the corporate space, right? And I'll start by answering that, having been a leader in the space and seen it work at companies that we've worked with and at. The cool thing about neutral and how I've seen it really work is slowing down the velocity of adversity, and so, let's say you're in an environment where, there's some insult to the business, and it's an individual performer. They take it right up to their manager, their area manager, or district manager, or whatever, within minutes, right? Within minutes, that goes down to the regional, and then within minutes, it goes to the VP, and all of a sudden, these situations escalated within 17 minutes. Everybody in the world has heard about it, right? What we've seen neutral do is it really slows down the velocity, where people start to go to facts, right? They start to say, well, a second, I understand this happened. Let me find out really what the story is. Let me identify these 1, 2, or 3 things. With that identification of those facts, they go to their district manager or their area manager differently, right? Either with the facts and a solution potentially, versus just freaking out on the reality. So, or what they believe is to be reality. So we've seen it really in the corporate space allow the velocity of some of that communication and the narrative to really, really slow down, and it just arms people with being more solution oriented. And I think that as a leader, if you have a team that you're leading in the corporate space, like that's one of the things that you really value, right? Is solution oriented people. You try to hire for it. Sometimes you miss, but you're looking for that. And so I think this is a tool to kind of be able to build that into people, and or highlight that the people that have it within them. It allows them to show off how solution oriented they can be. So I just wanted to answer that question from my perspective. I don't know if any of you guys have another perspective on that, but
It's good. No, I think you answered it well, man. Let's take another one. Let's see. So, Brendan here, what has helped you be able to recognize the voice that you should follow in your head to be better every day?
I don't have a ton of trust for that voice in my head. So I think there's some things that you can do to help program it. I think there's some ways that you can sort of manage it and steer it. I try to have be practical where I can. First of all, I want to say hi to Chad Bowling, who's jumping here under an alias. What up, Chad? Chad's one of my closest friends. Director of mental conditioning for the New York Yankees, and been the mental conditioning coach for the Dallas Cowboys for many years. If you want to find him on social media, good luck. You'll find nothing anywhere, Chad Bowling. But I think the outer voice. Sometimes having a logical conversation, but just quickly, what I tell myself, I think about. So just trying to move myself. And particularly at different times in my life, in adversity, try to be logical and step back and say, okay, this is the reason why I think I can be optimistic. I know I'm concerned about this. I just got to let it go right now and move forward. And, so I have a conversation, but I really try to shift it, because you can only think about one thing at a time. It's called the law of substitution. And you have the most influence on that thought. Particularly by what you say, but also by what you tell yourself. Track and field athletes use thought stopping. Bad thought comes in, picture a stop sign. But I think, look, at the end of the day, you control where you put your attention on. And I think that your attention is naturally going to be geared towards negative things. again, that's why the news. I'm looking at this note from my dad in 1978. You can't control the news, but you do control what you read, watch, and listen to. 1978. I mean, think about that. You control what you read, watch, and listen to. You know, but you don't control the news. You know, so I mean, like, I'm not political, but if you're surprised by anything this president does, like, shame on you. You know, and if you're surprised by people that support him, shame on you. Like, you're surprised by people on any side, you know, of politics, you know, Democrat, Republican, Independent. Like, they're gonna like, if they're a political official, they're gonna say the things that they need to say because it's their job. Like, you know, so sort of take the judgment out. I think at the end of the day, right now, it's, are you controlling the things that you can control, and being responsible to yourself. You know, if I watch a scary movie, I'm going to get scared, you know, and then like, wow, man, I'm like nightmares for 3 days. Why'd you watch it? You know? And if I want to watch something that's uplifting, I'm going to be uplifted, you know? So, you are 10 times more influential on yourself than anybody is on you. That's just the science of it. How are you using that influence? You know, what are you watching? Like, I get up in the morning, I go for a walk. You know, I just do 4 blocks in Manhattan Beach. It's the first thing I do. Then I come and I kind of sit down, and then, you know, I'm trying to take the first 30 minutes away from any social media. This whole last week, I've taken 4 hours a day off, no phone, just gone out, you know, but there's no right way. Just keep trying. Like, how do I implement neutral thinking? Just do something.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying there. And it's Harry, one of my favorite people is on this call or this webinar, Danny West. And one of the things that sticks out to me working with her is that a couple of things that Trevor has said and alluded to, and Russell talks about it all the time. You know, anytime you go into a difficult situation, and Danny was asked to turn around a market in Flint, Michigan that had never been successful for that company. And you know, she had to go into it, you know, basically believing first that she could do it. And I think that's one of the things that Russell does. I think that the top athletes that Trevor's worked with, or top organizations, they have to first believe. That will minimize some of that stinking thinking, you know, that's in your head. Again, you can't control what you can think, but you can believe that you can achieve to get your results. The next thing is, and this has been an overarching thing, what behaviors are you going to do? And then, you know, watching Danny, you know, in that market, there were certain behaviors. She knows she had to make 20 calls, where maybe in a market that was more favorable, maybe they only have to make 8 or 10. You know, she knows that she has to do 10 lunches in a week, where, you know, maybe an average territory may have to do 4. So what are your behavior? And then how do you get to your results? So you can't really control that inside voice. You can control your behaviors if you want to be successful.
Awesome, bro. Maybe mic drop it there.
That's where your confidence comes from. DJ, I mean, I think, you know, I've also seen Danny on LinkedIn as well. And I think your confidence comes from those behaviors. Russell's ability to believe in himself, Corey Close's ability to believe in herself, come from the confidence that the belief that's come from the behavior. So if you lead with the behavior, because all confidence is the belief that you can execute your job as a parent, as a significant other, in a relationship, staying healthy, whatever. So you know, I think, again, take a really good inventory as you move forward to this incredible audience that's been so great the last 10 weeks, of what you're doing, and don't be afraid to change that, and also don't be afraid to trust it and just stick with it and stay the course. Over to you, DJ, for the close.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have you set it up. I'll say a couple parting words here, Harry. I'll let you say a couple things. First, I just want to thank everybody. I know Fridays can be busy. Actually, I'm not supposed to say the B word, right? We don't say that in our organization. It can be crazy at times. And so you taking the time and seeing the value in this, all the folks that are on the webinar, we really appreciate that. We hope you've seen the value of this. This is our first season. We at first showed you how to win the weight. Now we're trying to help you try to find a way through. We'll continue to bring value to you, via, follow us on LinkedIn and our social media. But we love doing this. We love impacting people, and we appreciate your time. Harry, anything?
No, I mean, I think that the word that we try to use instead of busy is active, right? Active's a more neutral, positive, neutral term, I think, than busy or crazy, I think. But so we know how active it can be on a Friday, especially in the middle of the day. So thank you for being on. This is not the end. We just wanted to kind of wrap something up and have a nice closing to it and wrap this up. As you know, we're all doing it. Everybody on here is doing different things than they were doing 3 months ago. We're just trying to stay nimble and also provide value while allowing our business, Limitless Minds, to evolve. And you guys are a part of that. So we appreciate any and all feedback that you've given thus far, and we'll give. There's a lot more to come for Limitless Minds, including broadening our audience and being able to have an app that people can continue to get more content. That's in the future, coming soon. Somebody's asked about train the trainer, if you will, or being certified in different limitless kind of coaching in this area. That's something that we're looking at as well. So more to come, certainly, and we appreciate the loyal listeners and viewers of this. So appreciate it, Trevor.
Yeah, I just think I love the quote that Judah Smith, the pastor for the Seattle Seahawks, non-denominational, and it just something I heard him say early on at one of the events we're all with him, that we have, we all have access to the same information. The question is, are we open to giving that information access to us? And I think that's just a really powerful, at different times in our life, we're going to be more open to letting people or facts or information. You know what? Maybe I should take a look at what I'm listening to and what I'm watching. Other times, like, no, man, this is what I do. But I think now might be a really good inventory, because kind of what we watch, who we hang out with, what we associate with, like, it creates a magnetic field of what we're going to attract to us. And sometimes we're attracting the wrong things because we're the behaviors aren't adding up. So when with that boss, with the kids, with the family, I think through this incredible challenge we've gone through has come some really great opportunity for Harry to spend time with his 3 daughters, and DJ to spend time with his kids, and Matt and Catherine and Sean and all the people, and Anna within our organization, to spend time and to talk and to do things. And hopefully you've learned that. And for other people, a lot of people, 35 million, it hasn't been. And I know it's been scary, and I know it's been terrifying, but how can they navigate forward, and how can they navigate through this? And maybe they're going to be more open to some different things and different opportunities. Or 1,000 baseball players that just lost their jobs today, making $400 a week on their dreams to being professional athletes, that because of no season. And so we're all being affected in different ways, but think about how you can influence you. You're going to have the most power on how you navigate through good and bad. So I think when you want to learn more, go back and revisit this series, thinkbig-gofar.com. Sean and Matt have done a great job of inventorying that, and our web people. And if you want to learn more, link in with Ryan, DJ, Harry, and the whole crew. And you DM me. I'll get back to you eventually. Not for 4 hours today, but have a great weekend.
Hey, thank you all. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Peace. Have a great weekend.